So 5.1, proportionality, and a lot of this in 5.1 are things we've already alluded to and talked about when we dealt with proportions and ratios. And a lot of the problems in this section, well, they don't vary that much. So when we look at this first one, the distance you drive is proportional to the amount of gas used. Driving 160 miles using 5 gallons of gas. Complete parts A through C. So let's go to my notes. If I can get there. All right. So I was looking at the first one. So for me, I have the distance you drive is proportional to the amount of gas used. Driving 100 miles uses 5 gallons of gas. So the first thing we recognize that our rate is 100 miles per 5 gallons of gas. So to simplify that, 100 miles over 5 gallons is 20 miles per gallon. And so that was the first thing, just taking your rate and establishing what your rate is, 20 miles per 5 gallons. And we could reduce that to 20 because 100 divided by 5. And so if I wanted to convert my gas, which is gallons, that's what it gave us in the first column, and we want to convert it to distance. The thought process behind it, whether you do all this or set up or not, is that you have 0 gallons, whether it's 0 gallons or 5 gallons. And you want to convert it to miles, because remember, you want to convert it to distance. So we can use this conversion factor, in which we have 20 miles over 1 gallon. That gallon will cancel and leaves us in the measurement of miles, which is what we want. So 20 times 0, of course, is 0. But that's what we would do in each one of these cases. So we'll do 20 times 5, which is 100. 20 times 10, which is 200. Excuse me. And then 20 times 15, which would be 300. All right, questions on A. Then it tells us to represent the relationship distance driven, the relationship between distance driven, which is D, and gas used, which is G, represented as an equation. So they give us D to use as a variable and G to use as a variable. And what we did was we took in order to calculate our distance, we did 20 times the gallon that they gave us, 20 times the gas that they gave us. And so that's what we did right here. That's the setup. Your distance is equal to 20 times the gallons. So D is equal to 20 times G. All right, questions. All right, so they also ask you to plot, and C, they ask you to plot. So I just did a quick run through right here as to how you do plot on the Cartesian coordinate plane. I believe we talked about it briefly in earlier sections, but I just want to make sure you're clear. They don't go into deep detail about plotting points because they assume you know how to plot points. You know, this section, you know, this chapter, not just chapter, but this class is, you know, past that. So if you have any issues with plotting your points, make sure you get with me. But your plane is going to be made up of 2 axes. Your horizontal axis or your vertical axis. Your horizontal axis is your x-axis. Your vertical axis is your y-axis. And that can, you know, lettering can change according to what we're dealing with. Of course, we're dealing with D and G. We'll talk about that in a second. But where they intersect will be your origin. 0, 0 is always the coordinate of your origin. To the right of your origin is positive. To the left of your origin is negative. Above your origin is positive. Below your origin is negative. Split up into 4 quadrants going counterclockwise. You know, quadrants 1, 2, 3, and 4. To get into quadrant 1, you have to make 2 moves, 2 positive moves. To get into quadrant 2, a negative move, then a positive move. Quadrant 3, 2 negative moves. And quadrant 4, positive and then negative. We will be graphing by what we call ordered pairs because the order matters. Your horizontal move is always first, and then your vertical move would be second. All right. So just looking at these points, just make sure we're okay. You always start at your origin. If I wanted to plot 1, 2, I would start at my origin, go to the right 1, up 2. If I wanted to plot negative 4 or 5, I start at my origin, go to the left 4, down 5. If I want to plot negative 3, 2, start at your origin, go to the left 3, up 2. To plot 1, negative 4, go back to your origin, go to the right 1 because it's positive 1, down 4, negative 4. Any point that's on my x-axis, that means on my horizontal axis, that means my vertical had to be 0. So if I go to the right 3 and 0 for y, that's 3, 0. If it's going to be on your x-axis, that means y is 0. And then if it's on y-axis, that means x is 0. You didn't move right or left, so your x is 0. So here, this point would be 0, 3. I don't go left or right, but I move up 3. All right, questions with plotting points. All right, so going back to our equation, our original points, we go back, notice we have the ordered pairs of 0, 0, 5, 100, 10, 200, 15, 300. You can just pick 2 of those points. You don't have to pick, you don't have to plot all 4. My math lab is only going to allow you to plot 2. So we can just do 0, 0, and 5, 100. They let you know as far as the chart is concerned that gas is your x-axis, distance is your y. And so you plot those 2 points. 0, 0 is right here. And so I think they, oh yeah, I think they also let your bottom, you can let that go or be increments of 5. So I got 5, 10, 15, 20 down bottom. Then I let my vertical axis be increments of 100. So that's 100, 200, 300, 400, and so on. And I did that according to what type of values I had in my x and y axis for my gas and my distance. So my gas went in increments of 5, distance went in increments of 100. So I plotted 0, 0, and then I plot 5, 100, and that gave me my line. All right, questions? All right, let's look at the next one. This one is similar. A lot of them are similar to the one that we just did, but this one adds another element to the problem. It says your monthly electric bill is proportional to the number of kilowatt hours. So kWh of energy used at a rate of 7.2 cents per kilowatt hour. There is a monthly base charge of $32.50. $32.50. So the other one gave us just the rate. This time, this gives us a rate and a monthly base charge of $32.50. So I'll let you write that before I keep going. All right. So they give us that chart. This time they give us a chart of 0, 200, 400, and 600. So what I did was I allowed my energy to be X and my cost to be Y so that I can set up my equation. And so what happens is I have 72 cents per kilowatt hour. So my kilowatt hour will be my X. And so I'm going to multiply, I said 72 cents, 7.2 cents times my kilowatt hours, my energy, and then add 32.50 to that calculation or that multiplication because there's a base charge of 32.50 every month. So even if I don't use up any energy, I still have to pay $32.50. So when X is 0, that's 0 plus 32.50. All right. So now what we have to do is be careful here with the wording. Notice it says 7.2 cent and not just 7.2. So you're talking about 7.2 cent. That's actually going to be 0.072 when you're talking about in comparison to dollars. We have to move it, 2 places to the left because of it being in cents. So just be careful with the wording. So my actual equation is going to be 0.072x plus 32.5. All right. So from there, we'll plug in 200. So 0.072 times 200 is 14.4. 14.4 plus 32.50 is going to be 46.90. And so you would do the same thing for 400 and for 600. So you fill in the rest of the chart. All right, questions on that? All right, so then the next one did the same thing that going back to what B did for this one when they give us the variables and tell us to write the equation. So they give us C for cost and E for energy. And so just go with what you already did. We multiplied the energy times the 0.072. So that's 0.072 E plus the 32.50. And that's how we figured out our cost. All right. Questions? Any questions? All right. I think this is the last one in this section. Yep. Last type of problem in this section is determine which order pairs satisfy the given equation. They'll give you an equation like this one, x plus 4y equal to 14, and then give you ordered pairs to plug into the equation. So the first one we have is 2, 3. Don't forget it's ordered pair, order matters. X is 2, y is 3. And then you're going to plug in your x and y accordingly. So that's 2 plus 4 times 3. 4 times 3 is 12, so that's 2 plus 12, which is 14. And so 2, 3 is an ordered pair. Satisfy the equation. That's 14 equal 14. Next one, 0, -3. Plug in 0, -3. So 0 for x, -3 for y. 4 times -3 is -12. So 4 plus -12, I mean not 4, but 0 plus -12 is negative 12. So negative 12 equal to 14 is not true. So 0, negative 3 would not satisfy the equation. All right. Questions on that? All right, so let's go to 5.2, slope and y-intercepts. So your slope is going to be your rate of change. Should have written average rate of change. So average rate of change. Slope is also the steepness or the incline of your line. So you can find your slope, and slope is going to be represented by m by doing y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, or y1 minus y2 over x1 minus x2. It doesn't matter which way you do it or what order you do it, as long as you stay consistent. Notice if you do y2 first on top, you should do x2 first down bottom. Or if you do y1 first up top, do x1 first down bottom. And that's also going to represent your rise over run. Your y is on top, x on bottom. Your y is your up or down. Your run is your x, which is right or left. And we're 0.1 and 0.2. 0.1 is x1, y1. 0.2 is x2, y2. Are just any 2 points on that line. All right. Also, we have our slope-intercept form, which is y equal to mx plus b, where m is your slope and y is your b is your y-intercept, and it has the coordinates of 0, b. So your y-intercept will always have the coordinates of 0, and whatever that number is, x is always 0 for your y-intercepts. And then for a note, as a note, side note, for your x-intercepts, y is always 0. So it's always the opposite. If you're looking at your y-intercept, x is always 0. If you're looking at your x-intercept, y is always 0. All right. So if your equation is in this form, y equal to mx plus b, you solve for y, and everything on the right side or the other side of your equation is simplified as much as possible. And we're talking about linear equations here. What is sitting in front of x is your slope, and the other number is your y-intercept. So a lot of times people make the mistake, they ask you what is the slope, or you ask them what is the slope, and they will say 4x. Your slope is not 4x, your slope is just the number 4. So don't make that mistake. Your slope is just the number that's in front of x, not the actual x. And your y-intercept here is -5. Don't forget, as an ordered pair. We'll talk more about it as we progress. Y is equal to 0, so that means your ordered pair would be 0, -5. Oh, I think this came from a problem. Let me go find a problem. Okay, here's just emphasizing, and this is out of 5 too, emphasizing the relationship of your slope and your line and what it means. So here it says, what is the slope of the linear trend line? It's just going to be the number I already mentioned. It's going to be the number sitting in front of your x. So I think you guys can see that. So that's the equation they give us, negative 0.1175. All right. And then the next one, and you see the title of your graph is per capita beer consumption. So the per capita beer consumption is changing by negative 0.1175. Now, don't forget when it comes to your slope, your y is on top, your x is on bottom. So when you talk about per, it's gallons, which is your y, gallons per year, which is down bottom, your x. All right. So questions on that before we move to the next one. Same thing. Same thing. Okay. So here's that one. All right. So here, this one gives us a different one. So that's fine. We can use this. It says what you would do is look at this graph, and you see we have 0, 0, because what they ask us is about the slope. Let's go back. It says in words, describe the function shown below. Find the slope. So we can take 2 points off of this line and see we have 0, 0. And then the next point that's actually in the corner, which actually gives us a solid point, is 4, 1. All right, so 0, 0 and 4, 1. And we'll use those 2 points to find the slope. So the last one I had was 1, 4. So this one is 4, 1. All right, so I'm gonna do it both ways to show you that either way you'll get the same point. Remember I told you you can do it either way, but remember when you do it on your own, all you have to do is do it one way. So let's just make sure that we, whenever you do it, you're consistent. So if I'm doing y2 first, that'll be 1. And then y1 is 0. That's 1 minus 0. x2 is 4. And x1 is 0. So that's 1/4. If I go the other way, that's going to be 0 minus 1 and 0 minus 4. So that's negative 1 over negative 4, which is positive 1/4. So either way, you'll get the same number as long as you stay consistent. Once again, y2 use first up top, then use x2 first down bottom. Or if you use y1 first on top, use x1 first down bottom. All right, so let's go back to our choices. So it says, according to the function, A, rain depth decreases by 2 inches every 1 hour. Then it says increases by 2 inches every 1 hour. Then it says decrease by 1 inch every 2 hours, or decrease or increase 1 inch every 2 hours. All right, and also look at what we have here. Time is down bottom, which is our x, and rain depth, which is inches, that's on y, is our vertical axis, which is our y. So that's going to matter in a second. So let's go back to our notes. So one thing I want to point out, positive slope means increase, negative slope means decrease. So we've already eliminated 2 of our choices, because remember one talked about 2 of them talked about decreasing, 2 of them talked about increasing. So we cannot have a decreasing effect if we have a positive slope. So we have a positive slope here. So we're looking at the increasing options. And as I mentioned, Y was increasing. I mean, not increasing. Y was your inches. X was your hours. So that's inches per hour. So we say our slope is going to increase 1 inch every 4 hours. Remember, we had 1/4. My numbers were different for the last class. 1 inch every 4 hours. All right, questions? Any questions? All right, so the next one, find the slope. If they give us the points, -2, -10, and 2, -8. And we've already actually done this process in the last problem. Just label which point you call them point 1 and the other one point 2. So it's -2, -10, x1, y1. Then x2, y2 is 2, -8. And plug them in accordingly. So y2 is -8. Y1 is -10. Make sure you don't lose a negative. Be careful with that. A lot of people do. Make sure you're careful. So there's -8 minus -10. Then plugging in for x2, which is 2. And then x1 is -2. So in both cases, we have negative to a negative, which turns positive. So it's -8 plus 10, 2 plus 2. So that's 2/4, which is equal to 1/8. I mean, shoot, 1/8, 1/2. All right. Next one, a person's annual salary increases by 10,000 over a 10-year period. Find the average rate of change of the salary per year. So it goes up or increases $10,000 for over 10 years. So if you want to find the average in which it changes for every 1 year, you just divide it by 10, and that'll be $1,000 per year. So you have to 10,000 divided by 10, and so it's $1,000 per year. It increases at an average rate of $1,000 per year. All right. Next one, your basic behavior of your slopes. If you follow your graph from left to right, if it goes up, it's increasing. That means your slope is positive. Follow left to right, if it goes down, it's decreasing. So it means your slope is negative. If you have a horizontal line, your slope is 0. And if you have a vertical line, your slope is undefined. All right. So next one, got a few more and then we'll be done. If you have y equals 5, normally when you look at a graph, you have this, or a function or an equation, we have this in which we have y equal to 2x plus 1. We have a y and an x involved in the equation. That's what's normal. If you don't have that and you just have the one variable, let's say right here we have y equal to 5, there's no calculation involved. It just means that y is always 5 no matter what x is. So when you look at my chart right here, I chose negative 1, 0, and 1 just to, for x, any old x. Well, y is always going to be 5. And if you grab those 3 points, you'll get a horizontal line at 5. All right. Similar situation happens when you have x equal to a number. It says no matter what x is, or no matter what y is, x will always be negative 2. All right. So let y be equal to anything. I just chose 1, 2, and 3 for y. X is negative 2 all the way down. And when you graph that, you'll get a vertical line at x equal to negative 2. All right. Questions before we look at this last one? All right, so last one, I'll show you 2 different ways of graphing. It's up to you what method you want to use. It just says graph, so it doesn't depend on or make you depend on a certain method. But we go through the slope method first. So graph, you use your slope just because this is a slope section. But you don't necessarily have to use that method. I just want to make sure we're okay with it. So we have y equal to 4x minus 5. Remember we mentioned before that if your equation is solved for y and it simplifies as much as possible, on the other side, then that is your slope-intercept form. The number that's sitting in front of your x or attached to your x is your slope. The other number is your y-intercept. So m is equal to 4, y-intercept is equal to negative 5. All right, so in order to get all of the information or extract all the information possible from your slope, we recognize that your slope is rise over run. Remember that was the last relationship that I gave you as far as the slope was concerned. And rise means that you will go up or down, and your run is going to be right or left. So what dictates whether you go up or down and right or left is whether you have a positive or negative number. So your positive moves are up and right. Your negative moves are down and left. All right. All right. So for an example, if I have the slope of 2/3, that's a positive 2 over a positive 3. So that means I will go up 2, right 3. Then if I have a negative 5 over a positive 11, that will be a down 5 and right 11, excuse me. So keep in mind, notice what I did. I did not give that negative to the top and bottom. That is not a negative over negative. Negative over negative would be positive. So that negative has to be given to one or the other, the top or the bottom. I always suggest just go ahead and give it to the top. And like I said, that would be a negative 5 over a positive 11. which tells me to go down 5 and then right 11. All right, questions on that before we go back to our problem? They don't sit too much on this as far as the section is concerned because, like I said, they believe that you are pros at graphing at this point, so they don't sit on it that much. But if you have questions with any of the graphing, most definitely let me know. We can talk about it. So going back to our problem, your slope was 4. As a fraction, that's 4 over 1. Any number sitting alone is over 1. So that means you would go up 4, right 1. And then your y-intercept is -5. Remember we talked about y-intercepts as coordinates. That would be 0 and that number. So that's 0, -5. So to graph using your slopes, the first thing you would do is graph your y-intercept. You graph your y-intercept first. And then from there, you generate another point from the y-intercept using your slope. So don't forget your slope is not a point. So you don't go back to your origin with that slope. Your slope is just instructions on how you can generate another point from the y-intercept. So we'll do that. So graph the y-intercept first, which is 0, -5. That's right down here. Go down your y-intercept 5. Then from your y-intercept, my instructions are to go up 4, right 1. So from the y-intercept, I go up 4 and then right 1. And that will be my line, my 2 points. All right, questions on graphing using your slopes. And then I'll show you one other way to graph. And what's simpler depends on, you, what you want to do. All right, so using that same equation, 4x minus 5, if you want to just create an XY chart, you can just choose 2 values. Remember, my math lab will only allow you to graph 2 values. And I chose 0 and 1. Then you plug in those values accordingly to find the corresponding Y value. Once again, you choose the X values. It's up to you what values you choose. Just remember, whatever you choose, you have to graph, you have to calculate. So I'll plug in 1. 4 times 1 minus 5. That's 4 minus 5, which is -1. So when X is 1, Y is -1. Then plug in 0. 4 times 0 minus 5. That's 0 minus 5, which is -5. So when X is 0, Y is -5. Then you can grab those 2 points. 0, -5 is down here. And then go to the right one, down 1. That's 1, -5, -1, excuse me. And connect your points. That'll be your line. All right, questions? Questions, concerns, comments on 5.1 through 5.2. All right, so this is where we stopped last class. So we're gonna have to go to another section. We got 5.3 and 5.4 to talk about out of chapter 5, and we'll be done with chapter 5. So not sure how far we're gonna go. We may, I think 6 is only 2 sections though. Anyway, I have to see where we're gonna stop. It probably won't get all the way to chapter 10, but I know we'll do at least 6. So we'll see how that goes. So once again, try the stuff out. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. And I will talk to you guys on next class. See you on Wednesday. Oh, don't forget to go and vote. Doesn't matter who you vote for, but it matters that you do exercise your right to do that. So make sure you go ahead and vote. Outside of that, have a good one. You guys take care. If you have any questions, feel free to stay back. If not, I'll see you on Wednesday.